The idea started with what felt like a perfect plan. Just me, Daniel, and my girlfriend Hannah, taking our RV, our 2018 Winnebago Vista, into the mountains for the first trip of the season. We wanted to go early, before the campgrounds got packed with tourists and noisy families, before the trails were crowded with hikers. Hannah loved peace, and I loved seeing her happy, so it seemed like the best decision we could ever make. A few weeks of planning, a cooler stocked with food, maps folded and stuffed in the glove box, playlists queued. It was going to be heaven. The drive itself felt like an adventure. The winding roads carved through the Appalachian Mountains, steep and endless, lined with dense pine trees that seemed older than time itself. We had the windows down for stretches, letting the cool mountain air sweep through the cabin. Hannah was in the passenger seat with her feet up on the dash, sunglasses on, humming along to a song I barely noticed because I couldn't stop smiling at her. It felt like life was exactly where it needed to be. When we finally reached the campsite, it was everything we'd hoped for. Quiet, peaceful, empty. There were no cars in sight, just our RV parked under a canopy of trees. The smell of pine mixed with the earthy dampness of the soil, and the air felt fresher than anything you could buy in a bottle. We set up camp quickly, rolled out the chairs, pulled down the awning, got the little gas stove ready. Hannah made coffee, and we sat side by side in silence, listening to the birds and the occasional rustle of leaves. "This is perfect," she whispered. It was, or it should have been. That first night, I noticed something. As I stepped out to get more firewood, I thought I saw a flicker of movement down the trail, just beyond the tree line. A shadow, a shape, maybe another camper, I thought, but we hadn't passed anyone coming up the mountain. Hannah didn't see it, and when I mentioned it, she brushed it off. I let it go. I told myself I was imagining things, but then came the sounds. At night, when the forest usually falls silent, there were cracks in the underbrush that felt deliberate, like footsteps, sometimes closer, sometimes farther. Hannah would fall asleep in the RV bed, her face soft and calm, while I lay awake listening, heart thumping like a hammer. The longer I listened, the more I knew it wasn't an animal. By the third day, my unease was a constant companion. Every walk to the river, every stroll to gather firewood, I felt it. Someone was out there, watching. And then the nightmare struck. It was late, well past midnight, when I woke to the sound of the RV door creaking. Hannah stirred beside me, confused, whispering my name. Before I could even move, the door slammed wide, and two figures in masks and dark clothes burst inside. One had a knife, the other a pistol. Hannah screamed, but he clamped a gloved hand over her mouth. My heart nearly stopped. "Stay quiet, and maybe you'll live," one of them hissed. They tied my hands with rough rope, the kind that cut into my skin with every twitch. They dragged Hannah from the bed and shoved her against the wall, the knife pressed dangerously close to her. My blood boiled with rage, but my body was locked in terror. The fear was unlike anything I'd ever known. Raw, suffocating, crushing. They weren't after money, not exactly. They wanted the RV. One of them kept muttering about how easy it would be to drive it down the mountain, how no one would stop them until they'd already disappeared. But the way they looked at Hannah made my skin crawl. I knew what they were thinking. The gunman laughed when Hannah tried to fight back, smacking her across the face. The sound of her cry ripped through me. What followed was chaos. They dragged me out of the RV, kicking and spitting into the dirt, leaving Hannah inside with one of them. My mind raced, panic flooding every vein. I could still hear her screams, muffled, desperate. I tried to throw myself at the man with the pistol, but he slammed the butt of it into my temple, and I dropped. My vision swam, blood trickling warm and sticky down my face. Somehow, I don't know where it came from, I managed to push through the haze. I saw a heavy rock near the campfire pit, and when he turned his attention toward the RV, I grabbed it. My hands were shaking, my body weak, but I lunged and smashed it against his knee. He roared in pain, the gun slipping from his grip just long enough for me to scramble toward the RV. Inside was worse than I could have imagined. The second man had Hannah pinned, knife flashing in the dim light. She was fighting with everything she had, nails clawing, knees jerking, screaming through sobs. I didn't think, I just hurled myself at him. The knife slashed across my shoulder, hot pain tearing through me, but adrenaline drowned it out. We fought, rolling, thrashing, fists flying. He was stronger. He slammed me into the table, cracking it clean in half, then drove his knee into my chest so hard I thought my ribs broke. Hannah, God bless her, grabbed the frying pan from the stove and smashed it into his skull. The hollow clang echoed like a gunshot. He stumbled, dazed, and I managed to shove him backward, out of the RV door and into the dirt. The first man was already limping away, dragging his partner with him, cursing us with promises to come back, to finish what they started. Then, just like that, they disappeared into the trees. Silence fell, broken only by Hannah's ragged sobs and the thundering of my own heart. I collapsed. My body was shaking violently, blood soaking through my shirt from the shoulder wound, my temple throbbing where the pistol had struck me. Hannah wrapped her arms around me, whispering over and over, "You're okay," though neither of us believed it. We didn't sleep that night. We sat huddled by the broken table, listening for any sign of their return, too terrified to close our eyes. When dawn finally came, we drove the RV down the mountain, both of us trembling, barely speaking. Every turn of the road felt like an ambush waiting to happen. At the base of the mountain, we found a ranger station. I barely remember what I said to them. I just know that they called the police, and soon we were surrounded by flashing lights and questions I could hardly answer. I was taken to the hospital, admitted for a month. My shoulder needed stitches, my ribs were badly bruised, and the concussion left me disoriented for days. Hannah never left my side, but I saw the devastation in her eyes every time she looked at me. The woman who had once glowed with happiness now carried a shadow she couldn't shake. The police never caught them, not officially. They told us attacks like that sometimes happened in remote campsites, people looking for easy targets, desperate criminals willing to do anything. That answer gave me no peace. How many others had suffered? How many more would? Even now, months later, I wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, convinced I hear the RV door creaking open again. Hannah startles at the smallest noise, refuses to talk about the trip, avoids even driving near the mountains. The peace we sought is gone, stolen from us in one horrific night. And the worst part is, I can't stop replaying it. Every scream, every blow, every second of Hannah's terror. My mind claws at the same question again and again. What if we hadn't survived? What if they had taken her, killed us both, and vanished forever? The mountains were supposed to be heaven. Instead, they gave us a nightmare we can never wake from. I was 28 years old, proud of what I'd built for myself, a media journalist in New York, hosting live interviews and reporting stories that often made the front page. It wasn't easy being a woman in this field, but I had grit. People knew my face. People recognized me in the street sometimes, and that recognition fueled me to push harder. I was single by choice. My career came first. Late nights in the newsroom, coffee instead of dinners, stories instead of dates. My friends joked that someday I'd marry my job. Maybe they were right. But then one morning, in the middle of my usual chaos of emails, scripts, and calls, I found something strange in my inbox. The subject line read, "Marry me, Megan." I almost laughed. It was easy to dismiss. I got weird fan mail all the time, people who either adored me or hated me. I deleted it without opening, but the next day, it came again. A different address, same subject line, "Marry me, Megan." This time, curiosity made me peek. Inside was just one sentence, "You are already mine. Stop pretending you're not." It chilled me. I closed it, flagged it, and pushed it out of my mind. Trolls lived everywhere online. I wasn't going to let them control me. Only, it didn't stop. Letters began arriving at the office. Handwritten, messy, smelling faintly of cologne. The same message over and over. "You're mine. Say yes." My producer found one left on my desk after hours, though no one had seen who delivered it. I started checking over my shoulder on the subway. I told myself it was paranoia, until I caught sight of him, a man in a gray hoodie, hanging back but always there, on the platform, outside the coffee shop, across the street from my apartment. The first time I convinced myself it was coincidence. The second time, I froze in place. The third time, when he smiled faintly and lifted a hand in a wave before melting into the crowd, I knew he was following me. My sleep fractured. Every creak in my apartment felt like footsteps. Every vibration of my phone made my stomach lurch. He began sending texts somehow, even though I changed my number twice. Short, sharp words that made me nauseous. Red looks good on you. You shouldn't eat alone. I love how your hair smells in the rain. That one broke me. I remembered that morning, running late, hurrying into the studio with damp hair after a drizzle. He had been close enough to smell me. I went to the police. The officer was polite but weary. Unless he threatens physical harm or makes a move, it's hard to act. Collect evidence. Block him. Stay cautious. That was it. Stay cautious. As if I wasn't already drowning in fear. At work, whispers started. My coworkers noticed the calls, the way I jumped at shadows, the circles under my eyes. Rumors spread. Maybe I was seeing someone unstable. Maybe I'd made poor choices. My reputation, something I'd built brick by brick, was cracking under the weight of gossip. One night, after staying late to finish edits, I walked out into the parking garage. The place was empty, my heels echoing. My car was parked in the far corner, and then I saw it, taped to the driver's window, a wedding ring, a simple gold band. No note this time, just the ring, stuck there like a promise or a threat. I couldn't breathe. I stumbled back, my chest tightening. My phone slipped from my hand. In the silence, I could swear I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, behind me. I spun, but the garage was empty. Only shadows, only me. I drove home shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel. I locked every door, shoved a chair against the knob, sat with a kitchen knife in my lap until sunrise. The next week he got bolder. I found roses at my door with no card. Then a framed photo of me taken outside the studio, unaware, looking down at my phone. The angle suggested he had been so close, maybe just feet away. I wanted to scream at everyone around me. Don't you see? He's here. He's always here. But no one did. My producer told me to take time off. My boss suggested therapy. My friend stopped inviting me out because I was too tense. I was being slowly isolated, exactly how he wanted me. Alone, vulnerable. His nights were the worst. My apartment felt like a trap. I'd lie awake, listening, convinced he was just outside, waiting. Once at 3 a.m., I heard a soft knock on my window. 3rd floor. When I dared to peek, nothing was there. I started leaving lights on, TV running, anything to drown out the silence. I hated myself for trembling in my own home. But terror is corrosive. It eats through pride, through reason, until all that's left is raw survival. The breaking point came on a Thursday. I was walking home, hugging my coat tight, when I felt him. You don't just see a stalker, you sense him, like a second shadow stitched to your skin. I turned into a side street, faster than faster still. His footsteps mirrored mine. When I whipped around, there he was, hood down this time, face visible, mid-30s, ordinary features, forgettable in any crowd. But the smile he gave me was unforgettable. "Why are you running, Megan?" he called softly. "You know you're mine." My legs nearly gave out. I bolted. I didn't think, didn't care if cars screeched, if strangers stared. I ran like prey, heart clawing at my chest, until I burst into a police station blocks away, sobbing and incoherent. This time, they listened. Maybe it was the state I was in, or maybe it was the fact that I wasn't imagining him anymore. I filed another report. A detective promised to assign surveillance near my building, but promises don't erase fear. 2 nights later, he broke into my apartment. I woke to the sound of my balcony door sliding. My heart stopped. I lay frozen, every nerve screaming, as soft footsteps entered my living room. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, dialed 911, but pressed nothing yet. The knife I kept beside me felt like a toy in my grip. And then his voice, low, calm, too close. "You should have said yes, Megan," I screamed. Raw animal. The lamp crashed as I bolted, phone clattering to the floor but still live. I sprinted into the hall, yelling, pounding on my neighbor's door. Lights flicked on, doors opened, and for the first time, witnesses saw him, saw the intruder, saw my nightmare given flesh. He fled, but this time he couldn't disappear. The police caught him hours later, blocks away, carrying a bag with duct tape, a camera, rope. His name meant nothing to me, just a man, an ordinary man. But to me, he had been the monster who hollowed out my life. The trial dragged months. Every detail twisted my stomach. The defense claimed obsession, not intent. But the evidence, the photos, the letters, the bag, was enough. He was convicted. People asked if I felt relief. I said yes, but that was only half true. The bars keep him away, but they can't cage what he left behind. The paranoia. The nights I wake convinced someone is watching. The way I flinch when strangers glance too long. But I am still standing. I go on air again. My voice may tremble, my hands may shake, but I refuse to vanish the way he wanted. Sometimes I see my reflection on screen, composed, professional, strong, and I wonder if the audience can see the fracture lines beneath, the scars of a woman who once opened her inbox to find the words "marry me," and discovered what true horror really meant. Because horror isn't always in shadows or ghosts. Sometimes it's in the face of an ordinary man who decides you belong to him, and sometimes surviving is the only victory you get. I never thought much about hitchhiking. It always seemed like one of those relics from the past, something people did in old road movies or desperate times, not in the world we live in now. But when my car broke down outside a dusty little town in the middle of nowhere, with no buses, no trains, and the nearest mechanic telling me it'd take 2 weeks to order a part, I found myself with my thumb out on the side of the highway, backpack slung over my shoulder, hoping someone would give me a ride. I told myself it was temporary, harmless, just one ride to the next city. That's all I needed, just a little help. The first few hours passed slow. The heat was brutal, the sun blistering against the cracked asphalt, the sound of cicadas screaming in the dry fields. Cars passed, drivers turning their heads away like I didn't exist. I was close to giving up when a beat-up green pickup slowed to a crawl, gravel crunching as it pulled over. The driver leaned across the passenger seat and pushed the door open. He was in his 40s, maybe 50s, with wiry gray hair, skin like leather, and eyes that didn't blink enough. "Where you headed?" he asked. "East," I said, "as far as you can take me." He nodded once, slow. "Get in." I hesitated, just for a second. Something about his expression unsettled me, but I told myself I was overthinking it. People hitchhike all the time. I got in. The cab smelled of old cigarettes and motor oil. The radio was broken, wires dangling where the knobs used to be. I buckled up, shoved my backpack between my knees, and tried to smile. "Name's Alan," I said. He glanced at me, one corner of his mouth twitching. "Dale." We drove in silence for a while, the truck rattling on the highway, the fields rolling endlessly past. His hands gripped the wheel too tight, knuckles pale, veins bulging. Every so often, he'd look at me, not a friendly look, but sharp, measuring, like he was studying me. "You do this often?" he finally asked. "Hitchhiking? Nah, first time." That twitch of a smile again. First-timers don't usually last. I laughed nervously. "Guess I'll be lucky then." He didn't laugh back. The miles dragged on. I tried making small talk about the weather, about his truck, about where he was from, but his answers were short, clipped. It was like pulling teeth. Eventually, I stopped trying. That's when I noticed something strange. We'd passed a sign a while back that said the next town was 20 miles east, but the truck didn't feel like it was heading east anymore. The sun was no longer directly ahead. It was sliding to the side. My stomach tightened. "Hey," I said carefully. "Just making sure we're going east, right? Toward Fairfield." Dale's hands tightened on the wheel. His eyes stayed on the road. "We're going where I'm going." I felt the air drain from my lungs. And where's that?" Another long pause. Then softly, "Home." I laughed again, weakly this time. "Maybe you can just drop me off before then." "A gas station's fine." He didn't answer. My hands were slick with sweat. Every instinct screamed at me to get out, but we were in the middle of nowhere. No houses, no exits, just empty fields stretching to the horizon. After another half hour, he finally pulled off the highway onto a narrow dirt road that cut into the woods. My pulse spiked. "Look, man, I really appreciate the ride, but I think I'll get out here," I said, trying to sound casual. The truck kept rolling. He glanced at me once, then reached over. For a split second, I thought he was going for the door lock, but instead, he hit the glove compartment. It dropped open with a clang, revealing a hunting knife with a serrated edge. The blade gleamed in the fading light. "Sit back," he muttered. "We ain't there yet." My heart hammered. I pressed into the seat, staring at that knife. every nerve screaming. The dirt road wound deeper into the forest, branches scraping against the truck, shadows closing in. By the time he pulled up to a clearing, it was nearly dark. There was a cabin there, small, rotting wood, no lights. Something about it looked wrong, like it didn't belong. Out, Dale said. My body froze. What is this? He turned to me then, for the first time really looking at me. His smile stretched too wide, his teeth yellow and broken. It's where I keep things I don't want found. My blood turned to ice. He dragged me out by the arm, shoving me toward the cabin. I stumbled, tried to run, but his grip was iron. He shoved the knife into my back, not stabbing, but pushing just enough to let me know what would happen if I resisted. Inside, the cabin reeked of mildew and rot. The floorboards creaked, the walls lined with shelves of jars filled with things I didn't want to look at too closely. Bones, hair floating in cloudy liquid. A crude wooden chair sat in the center of the room, duct tape and chains coiled around it. My stomach flipped. This wasn't his home. This was a graveyard. He pushed me down into the chair, binding my wrists, wrapping tape so tight it cut into my skin. My chest heaved, panic clawing at my throat. You ever wonder, he said, pacing in front of me, why folks stop picking up hitchhikers? It ain't just fear, it's memory. Stories passed down. You boys get in the wrong truck, and you don't get out. I begged then. I don't even remember what I said. Please let me go. I won't tell anyone. I'll forget your face, please. But he didn't listen. He just hummed to himself, pulling a rusty toolbox from under the counter, laying out blades, pliers, a hammer. His eyes were bright, alive in a way that made me sick. That's when I noticed the door behind him. It wasn't a door, really, more like a cellar hatch, half hidden under a rug. It was padlocked shut, but something banged against it from the inside. Once, twice, then again. My breath caught. Dale didn't even flinch. He smiled, tilting his head like he was listening to a favorite song. They never learn to stay quiet, he whispered. But don't worry, you'll keep them company soon enough. The banging grew louder, faster, desperate. My mind reeled. There were others, alive, or at least, once alive. And that was the moment I realized. I wasn't the first, and I wouldn't be the last. He picked up the pliers, holding them inches from my face. You boys always beg the same way. Always think you'll say the right thing to make me stop. But there's no right thing. There's only the end. The cellar door rattled violently. Someone or something was thrashing against it. I saw his eyes flick toward it, just for a second. That was my chance. I kicked forward with all the strength I had, slamming both legs into his knees. He toppled backward, crashing against the shelves, jars shattering around him. The pliers clattered to the floor. I threw myself sideways, tipping the chair. The wood cracked against the ground, pain jolting up my shoulder. I twisted, fighting the tape, the chains biting into my wrists. Dale roared, scrambling up, blood trickling down his forehead. His knife flashed in the dim light as he lunged at me. I rolled, the blade missing my neck by inches. The cellar hatch banged open. The padlock snapped clean off. And then, they came out. Not people, not anymore. Skin gray and sagging, eyes clouded, movements jerky but strong. The smell hit first. Rot, damp, old death. Two figures crawled from the darkness, dragging chains still shackled to their ankles. Dale froze, his expression twisting from rage to something else, fear. No, he whispered, stay down, stay where you belong. But they didn't. They moved toward him, lips peeling back over broken teeth. I wrenched at the tape until it tore skin from my wrists, blood slicking my hands. The chair snapped under my thrashing weight. I stumbled free just as Dale screamed, the creatures descending on him. They didn't kill him quick. They tore into him, nails raking, teeth biting, flesh ripping. His screams echoed through the cabin, high-pitched and animal. He begged them like I had begged him, but they didn't stop. I ran, bursting through the cabin door, into the night, lungs burning. I didn't look back, not once. I didn't stop until my legs gave out and I collapsed on the dirt road, gasping for air. Somehow, I made it to the highway by dawn. A trucker pulled over, took one look at me, bloody, half delirious, and called the cops. I spent 3 weeks in the hospital. Infection, blood loss, trauma. They found the cabin later. They found what was left of Dale. They found the cellar. But what they found in the cellar wasn't alive. At least, not anymore. The official story was simple: deranged man, torture cabin, long trail of missing hitchhikers explained, case closed. But I know the truth. I saw what came out of that cellar. I heard the sounds. They weren't just victims, they weren't just dead. Something lived down there, and when I close my eyes at night, I still hear the banging, like they're waiting for me to come back.